gone down in the football world, in the sports world. We're going to get to all of it tonight.
Yeah, and I will take my victory lap now because who was the one that was saying the Buffalo Bills window is closed? Oh, yeah, that's right. It was me.
Oh, wait a minute. Who's the one that didn't see Brandin Cooks clearly has the ball in his hand, goes down to the ground with one knee on the ground, and then magically they say it's an interception?
See, you make it sound like that was the deciding factor.
Okay, if Brandin Cooks catches the ball and they do kick a field goal, it's game over.
But what? Okay. What about the fact that right before halftime, Josh Allen fumbles it. Denver cashes that in
Guess
for a
what? They
field
had
goal.
5 hours in the game. They should have beat Denver. So how good is Denver really?
Well, 10 minutes after Denver secures the win, Sean Payton has to come out and do a second press conference because Bo Nix broke his ankle.
Yeah, by the way, Bo Nix probably doesn't break his ankle if the NFL clearly officiates properly. Because then in overtime, they decide, oh yeah, by the way, now we're just going to start calling pass interference on every play.
Look, was the officiating perfect? No. There were definitely some calls that made me
and they missed one. And I give this to you. In overtime, there was a hold on Buffalo in the end zone. It should have been a safety. The game should have been over. So that I give you. It was bad on both sides. But
exactly.
Despite that, and yes, Josh Allen did miss the throw to Dalton Kincaid that would have won in the game in regulation. I get it. I'm not saying that play overall definitely is the reason why Buffalo won because they had opportunities to win the game. But
you're making it sound like that Brandin Cooks interception was the reason.
Well, it did change the game. I mean, at that point, you're dead. I mean, come on. That is like the Saints against the Rams in the 2018 NFC Championship game. When that pass interference was a no call, you knew right then and there the Saints were going to lose that game because they were absolutely deflated. You cannot overcome that. And that was the end of the Sean McDermott era. Now, where I disagree with you on is
Sean Payton, you mean?
No, that was the end of the Sean McDermott era in Buffalo. That play right there.
No, but you were talking about the 2018 NFC Championship.
No, I was, but I'm saying just like what happened in New Orleans, that play will define the end of the era in Buffalo for Sean McDermott, who I said 5 years ago, for the record, should have been fired. And the ironic thing is, out of all the playoff games he lost, this one that got him fired was not his fault.
I put most of the blame on Josh Allen for this game.
Well, absolutely. Josh Allen did not play a spectacular game, but again, Buffalo still had in position to win. And where I disagree with you 100% completely on is their window is not shut. Do you want to know why their window is not shut? Because they have number 17 at quarterback. And their next head coach, I can almost guarantee you, is going to be one of two people. One is Brian Daboll, who we know is the reason why Josh Allen got to be arguably the best quarterback in the National Football League today. And the other guy would be Joe Brady, who is his current offensive coordinator, who, I don't know, Josh Allen has only been playing at an MVP level the last 2 years under Joe Brady's offense. So, no, I don't think their window was closed. Do I think they had a really good shot? And do I think they should be going to New England? And do I think if they won that game on Sunday, they would be going to the Super Bowl? Yes, I believe that with all my heart and soul. But their window is not closed.
I believe it is. But
what evidence do you have? Oh, their window's closed. How? What do you mean by closed? Are they not going to make the playoffs next year?
No, they're okay. Their Super Bowl window, I believe, is closed, but not their playoff window.
Okay. I understand there are different levels to a Super Bowl window and playoff window. I get that. But you have Josh Allen, your Super Bowl window is not closed. Just like Green Bay Super Bowl window with Aaron Rodgers, even though their teams every year were never Super Bowl adjacent, you would say their window was never closed because they had Aaron Rodgers, even though they only made one Super Bowl. Cincinnati's window with Joe Burrow is not closed. Why? Because they have Joe Burrow. Baltimore's window is not closed because they have Lamar Jackson. Kansas City's window, they missed the playoffs this year. Nobody thinks their window is closed because they have Patrick Mahomes.
Understand. But what I find hilarious with Buffalo, they fired Sean McDermott, but they promoted Brandin Bean.
Well, not only that, but excuse me, this press conference.
Oh my God! What? Can I just ask the question?
Go ahead.
What did Keon Coleman do?
That poor kid needs mental help. If I'm the Buffalo Bills, I get that kid mental help because, listen, Keon Coleman, what was he? He was like a top of the second round pick, I believe, maybe bottom of the first round. But yeah, because Xavier Leggett was taken at 32, so he was taken, I think, the first pick in the second round. Listen, for that kid, for that pick, because T. Higgins was picked in that spot. So has he achieved expectations? No. But to put that pick on the coaching staff, really? No, who the hell is going to want Keon Coleman if you do move on from him? Nobody.
Yeah. And think about it. You had Stephon Diggs in the building, and for a number of reasons, he got sent out of town. And everybody's saying, oh, if Josh Allen actually had legit wide receivers around him, they could be legitimate Super Bowl contenders. But instead, they've got Shakir, Dalton Kincaid, Keon Coleman.
Dawson Knox is still their tight end. Brandon Cooks was not a bad addition at the end of the season. Believe it or not, it was ironic that his play came down to maybe decide the Buffalo Bills' fortunes of ever making it to a Super Bowl in the Josh Allen era. Again, I disagree. I think the window was closed. But I also will say this, and I said it last year for Buffalo. At some point, and it could be next year, though I don't know, which I think is part of the reason why they moved on from McDermott. They're going to self-destruct. You cannot lose like this, heartbreak after heartbreak after heartbreak after heartbreak after heartbreak, and not go through a year like the Niners went through a couple of years ago where they had all the injuries, or a year the Lions went through this year where, they went to an NFC championship game. Then they were the favorites, the number one seed. They got beat by the Commanders, but then they lost both their coordinators. It's not the same. I say this all the time in the NFL. The most important thing about the sport is having your quarterback, but that also doesn't mean progression is linear year to year.
Yeah. And I also don't think if you're a losing franchise, that losing is linear year to year. We could see like what happened with the Washington Commanders, for example, where they're one of the worst franchises, and then they come out of nowhere and make it to the NFC Championship.
Yeah, the last 2 years we've seen that. We saw it with the Commanders 2 years ago. This year we've seen it with the Patriots. I could make a real argument. Next year could be the Giants.
The Giants are going to be everybody's pick to go worst to first. We'll get into that later. But, if I'm a head coach candidate, yeah, the prospect of working with Josh Allen is great. I get it. But do you trust ownership with Terry Pagula? Do you trust that Brandin Bean is going to make the right roster moves for you?
Well, here's the other thing that nobody has mentioned yet. Also, next year, they're going to move into a new stadium. So you get to be the head coach in a new stadium, new environment. Maybe you start a new era in Buffalo. To be honest with you, I do think, and again, having a strong general manager, having an overrated roster does help. I get it. But when it comes to coaching, you can overcome bad general managership. You can overcome bad ownership. Look no further than the Cincinnati Bengals. They almost won a Super Bowl. What would that be? 4 years ago now, when they had maybe the worst owner in all sports, and Joe Burrow didn't have an offensive line. But guess what? They had Joe Burrow.
I'm not saying you're wrong in that regard. But it's like Buffalo could have gotten Jalen Waddle from the Miami Dolphins, but they didn't want to give up a first-round pick.
Well, by the way, I'm not paying a first-round pick for Jalen Waddle either. I'll give up a second. He's not worth a first-round pick.
Okay, fair. But, you allowed the Kansas City Chiefs to trade with you and go get Xavier Worthy. You could have gotten Xavier Worthy and made him a great weapon for Josh Allen.
Okay, I'm going to say this. How good is Xavier Worthy? He's better than Keon Coleman, yes, but how good is Xavier Worthy?
Right. Okay, that's fair. You could, like, Xavier Legette, sure, he wasn't always great.
He's not great for a receiver. He's big. He's got to learn how to catch the ball better. McMillan is certainly the better of the two in Carolina.
But you get my point, though.
Well, out of the three receivers that we mentioned, Worthy, Legette, and Coleman. Coleman's obviously the worst out of all of them. Though the ironic thing is, guess who scored a touchdown this postseason for the Buffalo Bills in that Jacksonville game? It was Keon Coleman.
You know, it's ironic, and we'll get to the Chicago Bears perhaps later in the show, as we're going to have to talk about the LA Rams. But it's ironic that the Bears season and the Jaguars season both came to an end on unfortunate interceptions.
Yeah, we'll get to that Chicago game. Yeah, and for Buffalo, it was in dramatic fashion. And, much as I don't like it, as much as I'm bummed, as much as you like Bo Nix, I'm bummed the fact that he's hurt. But that doesn't mean necessarily, in my opinion, that Jared Stidham can't get the job done. But it was a very strange situation, and I don't know. For Buffalo, just to circle back, I do feel like that this job comes down to Brian Daboll and Joe Brady. Again, I think they're going to have to interview two minority candidates because of the Rooney Rule, because it's such a great rule, even though it turns out that Brian Flores got a lawsuit because of the stupid Rooney Rule. But those are really the two candidates that are going to take this job, and I think either one of them will be successful.
Yeah. And I will say this, and to a certain extent I agree, though, again, Josh Allen had 5 turnovers, but if you want to make the argument that the better team was sent home on Sunday in Denver, I will hear you on that. I won't necessarily disagree with you. As much as I love the Denver Broncos and feel like they have rightfully earned this position that they are in to be one game away from the Super Bowl, if you want to make the case that the better team is now at home, I will not necessarily disagree with you about that.
And let me just circle back real quick on the officiating. My issue with this is the NFL all year long has been Mr. Inconsistent when it comes to officiating. One play is pass interference, when another game was not. In a similar game this year in New England, Week 15 between that Bills and Patriots game, there was a similar play involving a New England defensive back. I believe it was Marcus Jones and Khalil Shakir of the Bills. Very similar play. Shakir goes up with the ball, knee hits the ground. The defender is on top of him. Defender comes up with the ball. They ruled that a catch. So how is that play different than this play we saw in Saturday, which I do think, in a way, could decide who even makes it or wins the Super Bowl? Excuse me.
We'll get into this, but I don't think the winner of this Patriots-Broncos game is going to win the Super Bowl. I believe the winner of Part 3 between the Rams and Seahawks is going to win the Super Bowl. We have that as a topic coming up in the show. But nonetheless, you are 100% right. The officiating has been inconsistent all year. So I'd have to go back and see the play you're referring to before I can comment one way or the other.
And you know what my rule is when it comes to officiating. When the game is on the line in the biggest moments, and I say this on all sports, football, basketball, and baseball, you don't really get officiating involved besides the ball or strike call. But you never let the officials decide the game. There is holding every play. There is pass interference. But it does not significantly injure the defender where you are literally tackling him They let these guys play. There was worse calls and that could have been called that weren't called. And for those two calls that happened in the biggest moments of the game, that's what I was bothered with because it felt like they did not want the players to decide the game.
No, and you know what? Although I disagree with you about the interception catch play that you keep referencing, I do agree with you about that. Like
Again, I don't even think that Tre'Davious White, by the definition of the law, could you make an argument that was pass interference? Sure, you could. But I don't see a grab and pull when the ball gets there. I see simultaneous contact. To me, I'm letting that go.
See, that's the frustrating part about this game. Overall, I thought Bills Broncos was a fantastic game. Like the game itself. But all the conversation coming out of it is what is surrounding the interception that we've been talking about, the pass interference calls, and it's like, why aren't we talking about how great the actual game was?
Because those two plays are the two plays that, again, arguably, for better or worse, decided the game. Even if there was calls missed or throws missed, those two calls in that moment determined the winner.
That's and again, the frustration that you are expressing, totally valid. I understand it. I'm not here to disagree with you.
And by the way, if the Reds, just in my opinion, if they let those two plays go, Bo Nix doesn't get hurt. So karma Denver. That's the way I look at it.
It's just frustrating to me that it was a great game to watch. It was filled with momentum swings, and it felt like neither team was really in control. And for it to be marred by controversy, that's the frustrating part.
I'll say one more thing before we get to our Super Bowl picks. I've given you flack about Bo Nix before, but I'm going to give Bo Nix credit, even though obviously his season's over, and I already said it sucks for him. Bo Nix, out of all 8 quarterbacks this weekend, played the best.
Yes. I feel like Bo Nix, he's not quite at the elite level of quarterback yet. But if he can come back from this ankle injury and play at a similar level to what he was doing this season, I think he will approach that territory.